Hi again then guys, and welcome to another installment of Course of Beards and Cars, my podcast style series. But for this particular installment I wanted to do something a bit different, because usually at the end of each year, it's kind of become a tradition really now on the channel, I like to make a thank you video with kind of the highlights of the year and the growth that the channel has seen as a thank you to those of you who have been around for a long time, and as kind of a refresher for those who have joined within 2018, for example. This year it's been insane. Each year the channel has continuously improved in terms of how quickly it grows, so of course we're looking forward to 2019, but for 2018 it's been insane. Now first of all I'm going to break down some of the juicy specs to do with the channel, the kind of big numbers that you want to know about, like the views, the minutes, the subs, but then we're going to get into actual highlights of the year, and I went through all of my videos over 2018 from January 1st to now, and of course we've got 5 more videos in the year, including this one to go, but the numbers are amazing. For those of you who perhaps don't remember, and even those of you who have been around for longer will probably be surprised by this, at the start of this year, I had around 14,000 subscribers. That's how crazy 2018 has been. We're now over 32,000. The channel is far larger than double the size, and the views have been massive as well. Now, as I mentioned recently, and of course I mentioned it way back, I mentioned that I had 2 predictions for the channel. One was views and one was subs. I predicted that if the channel continued at its same rate of growth, that we hopefully would hit 30,000 subscribers and 8 million views by the end of the year. Look at the numbers. Both of those have been completely blown out of the water. Instead of 8 million views, we're almost 9.5 million. And instead of 30,000 subscribers, we're over 32,000. And for a channel of this size, a 2,000 subscriber difference over the prediction is huge, especially when it's 2,000 higher than predicted. And one of the reasons why those predictions did turn out better is because I don't base my predictions on what I hope will happen, I base it on the numbers. Those are the analytical numbers. I get about 10,000 views a day at the moment across the channel, sometimes more, about 12 to 15,000 on a good day, and about 1,000 to 1,200 new subscribers every month. So again, if that continues through 2019, you can make some rough estimates on how well that could go. Potentially that's well over 40,000 subscribers by the end of 2019. I would say that's safe to say will probably happen. Maybe 45,000. I'm going to predict maybe 45 for the end of 2019. And as far as views, well again, with 10,000 a day, it's pretty easy to work out. Anything above that is going to be an improvement, but that's about 3.6 million. So you could say over the course of the year, maybe another 4 million views, which would take us up to, about 12.5 million. So I'm going to make those 2 bold predictions for the next year of 45,000 subscribers and 12.5 million views. So of course we'll have to see how they pan out this time next year, or maybe a couple of days later than this. But in terms of the numbers this year, the views have increased by 5 million. So again, I just said 10,000 a day, but we got 5 million this year. And that's the great thing about it. If you predict based on the numbers, then it can be far superior than you predict. And that's always a great thing. In terms of minutes watched, 14.3 million. Crazy numbers. And incidentally, I did actually produce less videos this year than I did in 2017. And one of the main reasons for that is because I was pumping out a ton of Horizon 3 tunes, like 5 a day literally, in order to get them all done, or to get a lot of them done before Forza 7 was released. And of course that made a huge difference over the course of like a month or 2 of doing that. This year though, we have produced less, but we've still produced 1,000 videos. I looked through all 33 pages of videos, with 30 videos on every page that I've produced this year alone, and looked at all the highlights, and we're going to get to that in just a second. In terms of stuff like likes, comments, shares, well, the shares are well over 10,000, which is awesome. Thank you very much for that. Shares make a huge difference to the channel, sharing to Twitter, Facebook, whatever. In terms of likes, 118,000 likes over 2018. And as always, I do like to give a very special thank you shout out to the 4,700 dislikes that I've had in 2018, because without those morons, I would be 5,000 views less than I currently am. So once again, Thanks for the support. You guys are like clockwork. You click on videos that you don't even enjoy to hate on them, and you promote me all the time. They encourage my videos to go up in the rankings and higher in search results because of more views. So inadvertently, in your hate, you actually support the channel a whole lot. So thanks to you all. As far as the comments, 25,000 comments over the course of 2018. That's crazy, and I must say I have noticed the difference in comments this year. It's been really good to see you guys talking with each other, sometimes debating with each other, and of course the nature of a lot of Beards and Cars episodes really helps with that. They do tend to be debate or discussion style topics. But even in reviews or even videos that aren't to do with Gran Turismo, the views, or not just the views, but the comments are far better, and there are far more of them than there were in the previous year. So again, that's very cool. Getting that two-way conversation going, getting the community to actually start to feel like they belong to just that, community, which is the whole point of the channel, bringing communities together from different consoles and different games for the mutual love that we all have for cars and racing. Who cares what console you play on? Who cares what brand you support? We are all there for the same reason, and that is racing and the love of cars. That's the most important thing here on the channel. Finally, of course, the sub difference. Well, I already touched on it, but around 19 to 20,000 people have joined the channel this year alone. In fact, we had 4 milestones in 1 year. 15,000, 20,000, 25,000 and 30,000, all in 2018. That's crazy. And of course, compared to the previous year, that's a massive difference. And the previous year was amazing because the GT Sport beta made a huge difference to the channel in general. I went from like 5,000 to 10,000 subs in 1 month. And I didn't expect to see growth like that soon again, but 2018 easily surpassed that over the course of the year, and thankfully it was actually in a more consistent way. So it wasn't people joining and then dropping away, it was people joining and staying, which is very cool. But what then about the highlights? Well, we're going to start right from the start of the year, and of course I'm not going to go through every video, but I've picked out some footage in this video of the ones that I'm talking about, and we're going to actually break them down. So first of all, as a bit of interesting trivia, on the very first day of 2018, I produced a review in Project Gotham 3 of the Lotus Elise GT1. That turned out to be quite a fortuitous thing, because look what a year 2018 has been for the Lotus GT1. It's actually been kind of crazy, because I released that review in Project Gotham 3, and then months later we had it in Forza 7, and I reviewed that, and then in Forza Horizon 4 as a barn find. So I did the barn find video and the tune. So it's actually been quite a remarkable year for the Lotus Elise GT1, after being fairly dormant for quite a few years in racing games, with the only notable exceptions being stuff like Project Gotham 3 and way back in Gran Turismo 2. It's pretty cool that Forza has kind of revived the car's love, and the people who can love it, of a younger generation especially, who might not even have known that it existed before. So I just found that to be a very interesting little piece of trivia. The next one was that I made a controversial fake horror trailer for a Fallout expansion pack. I started playing Fallout 4 in 2017. I know, very late. It's one of my absolute favourite games. I've played through the whole thing like 3 times, and I love it. I decided to use some of the visual aspects of the game to cut up and edit my own horror-style DLC fake trailer, like a fan edit, and I posted it to the Fallout forums. They didn't receive it too well, surprise, surprise, but that was fun. It's actually got a decent amount of views, more than I was expecting, especially given that this channel has nothing to do with Fallout. But again, if you haven't checked that one out, you might get a kick out of it. I'm actually pretty proud of that little video. Next up, we actually started in 2018 my car reviews in Forza Horizon 1. And it probably doesn't seem like that. It seems like we've been doing those for longer, but that was this year. And of course, there are a lot of games which we haven't covered in quite a few months, but the primary reason for that is very simple. I only have a certain amount of time, especially with my new job that we'll get to later on, but I've been focusing far more in recent months on Forza Horizon 4, because getting those tunes and videos out as soon as you can is very important in a racing game cycle. Again, that's why GT Sport made such a difference to the channel initially, and then games always kind of peter off over time, at least compared to that initial buzz that people have, and then sometimes it ignites again around Christmas, for obvious reasons. Next up, we have an interesting little tidbit about the channel as well. Of course, I run a Patreon page as well for the channel. We have a number of patrons on there. There are 3 different tiers, I believe. In fact, no, there are 4 now. And those patrons who are on the VIP and pit crew tiers have the opportunity to make custom videos with me every month. Now, it hasn't worked out due to scheduling that we've done that every month, primarily due to the patrons being too busy to do so. But when we have done them, they've always been very well received. Be it from Nismo Nath or be it from Ryan Monday, both, or Maverick, as you know him on the Discord server. And again, we'll get to that in a second because he set up the Discord server as well. He mentioned it to me for a while. I was like, yeah, sure. I knew I'd probably never get around to it. So he just did it, showed me it, and then look at how we're doing on there now. We've got like 350 people on there. You can click the link below if you're not already a member. We have some good laughs and some occasional aggression on there, but it's usually dealt with pretty quickly. But it's a great thing, and him and Nismo Nath are great supporters of the channel, not just monetarily, but in different ways. The support and the style of both of those guys is very different. Ryan has more of like the tech side of support, like with the Patreon, various other more practical things that he's had in mind, tried to implement, tried to help me out with, even stuff like editing. We haven't done any of that, but it's still, the offer is there, and that's cool. And Nismo Nath has been more active, primarily again due to schedule, with actually doing those collab videos. I believe I've done 4 with him and 1 with Ryan, and all 5 of them, as I said, have been outstandingly well received, and the videos are so different to each other as well. That's what I really like, and that's the whole point, to make these crazy, unique videos as a collab. And again, even from Nismo Nath, he's made me offers to stuff, or to do stuff like actual racing with him in New Zealand. Many of you have probably read about that on GT Planet, the 24 Hours of Lemons. I believe he still has openings for drivers, if any of you are interested to go and check that out. So it's great to see this support, not just from this big heaving mass of a community, but also from specific individuals. And it's not just those guys, of course. The comments that you guys put, the comments of how you put that, or the comments that you've put about how the channel has helped you through a bad day, or how me responding to a comment has helped you through a bad moment, or how you've just been benefited in the game from finding a tune or something like that. All of that is great. I love that kind of support. Of course, you always have the idiots who are just here to hate on something that they can't achieve. That's, you know, it's their loss. It really is. And I deal with those kind of comments very quickly, so most of you guys don't even have to see that kind of hate on the channel. And that's something, again, which I'm proud of, because a lot of YouTubers seem to just allow those comments to remain. I don't really get that mentality. But anyway, on with the highlights. What happened next? Well, I had an interesting unreleased video, funnily enough, of a second challenge. Many of you will remember, I think it was in 2017, that I did the Carolina Reaper video, which was a very hot pepper, and that was a great video. It was a lot of fun. I probably wouldn't do it again, but watch the video if you haven't already. I plan to do a second one, and both of them were inspired by Rhett and Link on Good Mythical Morning. They are my favourite YouTubers, my single biggest inspirations, especially when it comes to their work ethic. But they did the sourest food challenge, so I tried to do a similar thing, but just skipping to the sourest of all, which is this particular thing called umeboshi plums. So I bought a jar of them for 10 quid, tried one, recorded it, as you can see some of in this video, but it just didn't work out. It was underwhelming. They didn't taste sour to me at all. They were just salty, so I ended up not even releasing that video. And I probably never will, because it's not that interesting. But that was something that happened in the year as well. In fact, that's pretty much the only video that I planned to release that I didn't. All the others got used, basically. Next up, we had a slightly sadder note for many people, and one which I think was ultimately a very bad decision on the part of Polyphony, and that was that we had the announcement of the GT6 servers shutting down. Again, that was this year. It probably doesn't feel like it, but yeah, that was in 2018. Next up, we had the 1.11 update, and I'm not going to cover all of the updates in GT Sport, but just some of the most significant ones. And I would say that the 1.11 update is a very undervalued one in terms of, in terms of us looking back and remembering it, because we had really good cars in that update. We had the Supra return, the Ferrari P4, the McLaren F1, the Ford GT, the Jaguar XJ13. That was a really, really good pack of vehicles. And it's easy to forget that, but it was a brilliant one. The next up point is a very significant one to me, because I produced the video that is still the #1 most viewed video on this entire channel. And it's the Blue Moon Bay method, which I produced about 9 months ago. And it's funny because you still see comments from people saying, hang on a second, how can this video be 9 months old, but it says 1.31 in the title and has a McLaren P1 in the thumbnail? Did you make some kind of crazy prediction or what? And some people get really annoyed and, really butthurt about the fact that I just updated a thumbnail and a title on a video that's 9 months old. The reason why I do that is very simple. Why would I make another video telling you the same thing when I already have a video that works just fine? So instead of making a repeat video, which to me is just a stupid waste of time and just leeching views out of your subscribers, instead of that, just facelift a video that's older but still works perfectly, because that video does still work, and it's got over 260,000 views. It's the #1 video on the channel. It took quite a while for it to surpass my previous #1, which was one of the most random videos I've ever done, which was an app review, but there you go. And yeah, it's nice that a gaming video is actually #1 on a gaming channel, which was kind of weird to begin with. The next one is I started another series, and that was my reviews for the Ride game, Ride 1 in particular. Now, I own Ride 2. I haven't bought Ride 3 yet, but I do plan to at some point, and I do plan to do reviews for those as well. But for now, we started the first one. Again, I held off on everything but Horizon 4, etc., but we will be going back to that as well. I know most of you guys aren't really that bothered about motorbikes, but again, the point is to appeal to all these different audiences of racing, and I have such a huge amount of love for motorbikes as well that there's no way I couldn't do content for those. Next up, we started a new series, a significant one for me. I've done top 10s of my favourite this and my favourite that before, my dream garage, but I'd never actually broken it down in such an in-depth way. The HSG Top 50. My top 50 favourite vehicles in the world, cars and bikes, for 2018. And in 2019, I'll probably do a light update version of that. Probably not a full 50 episode series, but an updated version, because some of my picks, even at the time, were completely wrong in hindsight, and I even mentioned that in the series itself. But that was a very cool one. I enjoyed doing that a lot, and that one actually helped on a time with the channel where we had some technical issues. I believe those were like the only videos that I was producing for a few days. Laptop issues have been a constant thing on this channel. The next one is February. We've only got to February. Everything that I just said happened between January 1st and February, because in February we surpassed 15,000 subscribers. So that was the first milestone of the year. So that was pretty awesome. The next one was, again, a very different video. For those of you who don't know, I have a very, very small series on this channel called Unsolved Mysteries. Not Unsung Heroes, but Unsolved Mysteries. There are only 5 videos in that playlist, and basically I was inspired, in part once again by Written Link, but also inspired by channels like Dark 5 or Hybrid Librarian, who make these interesting, like, weird videos about strange occurrences, but those videos always have the same kind of layout. It's like a moving background with some 3D effects and text on the screen. So I wanted to do something a bit different. So I changed it up in 2 ways. One, I actually do the narration for the videos, or at least the majority of them. And the second thing is, they're not real. And that was the angle that I wanted to play, because it was in 2018 that I finally realised what kind of writer I am. And I mentioned this in a video that I'm going to talk about later on. I realised that although I've always loved writing stories, I am not a novel writer. I'm a short story writer, because the ideas that I have that are my favourites don't need to take a long time to tell. So what better way of encouraging myself to do that kind of writing than making like a 5 to 10 minute video? And the reason why I'm talking about all this is because one of those videos in particular, the most recent episode about rabies, is by far the most successful of the whole series. It's got over 60,000 views, which I didn't expect it to get, but that's pretty awesome for a channel that has nothing to do with that kind of content, generally speaking. And for those who are wondering, some of the stuff in those videos, in fact pretty much all of them, if you Google it, you can find stuff about them. So how can I have written it myself? Well, that's my little twist that I like to do. I like to write stories that are fictional, but that tie into real events. So it kind of, excuse me again, it kind of blurs the line between reality and fiction. That's what I like to do with my short stories here on YouTube. So that was an amazing thing for me, seeing that video really increase in popularity. Funnily enough, it has a ton of dislikes and makes zero money at all because it was demonetized. But still, it's cool. I'm glad that people enjoyed it. Some people still seem to be freaked out about it, which is always funny to me. But yeah, if you haven't checked out those 5 episodes, I would urge you to do so, because I'm proud of my writing in them. I'm proud of the stories therein. My favourite one is probably still The Caves of Tam Lod that I wrote about. So yeah, I'd recommend that one the most. But yeah, check them out. They're in their own playlist, so they're easy to find anyway. What about next? Well, we started another series, TOCA, and we started TOCA and TOCA 2 at a similar kind of time. We haven't, again, covered TOCA in quite some time, but we will be going back to it. And some of the cars therein are pretty cool as well. The Lister Storm, the Speed 12, the Grinnell Scorpion. But again, we'll get back to those at a future time. Next one, of course, the laptop broke. Pretty much is a yearly tradition. At one point it was almost a monthly tradition. Replaced the laptop. I'm still using that same one. Runs on Windows 7, which is far superior. And it's going well so far. The laptop has its own issues. Apparently all of the laptops of this particular model like to have a black screen problem because they tend to cook their own graphics card. So I have the new graphics card, but it's a very complex job. You have to disassemble the entire thing, so I simply haven't got around to it. But at the time, it's the other laptop, and of course it broke. It's just the tradition of the channel. Next up, another milestone. April, so not exactly a long wait from February. 20,000 subscribers was passed by April. Then, soon after that, we had the 1.19 update, which is probably my favourite of all because it brought back Le Mans. I'd been predicting that Le Mans would return. It was far too important a track not to have come back. To me, I would say the one like that now is Laguna Seca. I would be very surprised if they didn't bring that back at some point. But it also brought back Group C, which are still in Group 1, but Group C cars. The Sauber C9, the R92CP and the Jag, and of course later on we had the Mazda. But again, we'll get to that in a second. So again, that was a really cool update, probably my favourite overall. What about next? Well, next up we started another one of the most popular episodes, or episode-based series on the channel, and one which pretty much gets like a consistent 1,000 views or so in every episode, the livery competition. We started the livery competition for GT Sport in June. We are now, around episode 20, I think it is. We had a couple of weeks where we didn't do it, but that's going real strong. It's great to see the creativity of many of you guys, and that one will be going strong for quite a while yet. Now, I will say, based on my new job, which is in the security industry, I work unusual shift patterns, so some weekends I will simply not be able to do the competitions, either of them, either photo mode or liveries, and there's not much that I can do about that, because I could do them on other days, but I don't know, I probably won't. We'll see how it goes, but that's just a little heads up for the future of the channel. What about next? Well, next up, a little while later, we had the 1.23 update, and that brought some significant things. You could put avatars in scapes. We had the Mazda 787B, and of course, Hamilton's Mercedes, the Mercedes W08 F1 car. What about next? What happened next on the channel? Well, August, another milestone, 25,000 subscribers. Then, next up on the chronological list of significant things, one of you guys sent me some info about a glitch for the Mercedes F1 car, and of course we did a cross-channel collab where we did videos about the glitching method for this Mercedes F1 to allow it to do over 500 miles per hour. That was cool. I mean, it's been a while since we've done a glitch video like that. There are less opportunities for it in GT Sport, but that was very cool. Having a little non-Patreon even related collab. That was cool. It was a nice change. Next up, we passed week 100 of the photo mode competition. We're now, of course, up around 120, but passing 100 was a pretty huge deal. Passing 50 was a big deal, but passing 100, there's something special about passing 100 episodes of anything. So, yeah, that was a pretty cool one as well. The next one was a very cool one to me, and the majority of the reason why this one was so cool is on the creator side rather than the viewer, and that was my early access full breakdown and review to V-Rally 4. That episode, or that review I should say, has over 12,000 views, and it was such a cool opportunity for a small channel like mine to work with such a big brand. They gave me the early access code. I did have an embargo where I couldn't release the review, but that was very, very cool, and I am actually still working with that company to do potentially more early access reviews in the future as well. So that's very fun. It's very cool when a channel that's still as small as this gets those kind of opportunities. So that was awesome. That was definitely one of the highlights of the year for me, especially from a business perspective. That was very cool, because having your business taken seriously feels good. It really does. Next up, we started another new series. Of course, I said early in the year we started Forza Horizon 1 reviews, but at this point in the year, we started Forza Motorsport 1 reviews, the very first Forza game. And I believe we have, was it 2 episodes now? I think I released, it might still be 1 though, the Mercedes CLK DTM touring car. I think I did a second review. I believe the second review was going to be the Corvette. I'm not sure if I released it or not, I can't remember now, but I think I did. But either way, there's at least the first one, the Mercedes, and I know that many of you guys want me to go back and review more from that game, and there are some surprisingly cool cars that got left behind, like the Mercedes CLK GTR race car as well, which is a very strange choice of car to leave in the first game and not bring back. Next up, September. We're moving through the year. The 1.28 patch. Another significant one because, as many of you will remember, Fuji returned, and much more significantly to many players, we had more Porsches. 2 returning Porsches. The 997 and the 993 Porsches were added to move in alongside the existing 991 series. That was a cool addition, and both of those turned out to be very, very good cars, as did pretty much everything else in the pack as well. What about next? Well, of course, next we started Horizon 4 content. Forza Horizon 4 came out. I knew that I would start focusing in on that a lot more. I believe I mentioned that at the time as well. What next? Well, next up again is one of my personal biggest highlights of the year, something which I've wanted to complete for so long, and I finally did. I finished my book. I finished my novelette, Buddy. And for those who have no idea what I'm talking about, as I said earlier on, I love writing stories, I always have, but I have a major issue with finishing them. I tend to have a perfect idea for the start and for the end, but then no idea what I'm going to do in the middle. And I always tried to write stories that were far too long, so I ended up writing filler and getting bored of it because I knew it wasn't the quality that I wanted. So once I realised that I was a short story writer, I was able to condense my ideas right down, keep the pacing really good, and actually get my thoughts down onto paper and finish them. I did a rewrite a couple of times of the whole thing, correcting all spelling errors, etc., changing some story points. And for those who haven't read it, you can actually read a copy, a digital copy of my novelette, Buddy, through Patreon. At the $5 tier, even if you only support it for 1 month, you get lifetime access through an email to my novelette. So I think that's a pretty cool deal. I mean, if you compare that to how much buying a book would cost you from a shop or getting a subscription to, Audible or something. But of course, it depends on if you want to read the story. And if you are unfamiliar with that story, I did an entire episode of this series, Beards and Cars, called I Wrote a Book, which you can see in the playlist, of course, where I actually talked about what that book is about and read some of it as well, if you'd like to hear some. So that was a huge one for me. That and the V-Rally review are probably my 2 favourite highlights so far. What about what's up next, though? Well, we had the return, or in fact, no, actually, that's not just yet. We had another review, and this one was another amazing one, like the V-Rally one. I was contacted by a company called BenQ, and they offered to send me a gaming monitor, the EX3203R, and I did a full review of that, and that was very cool. Now, I still have, of course, the monitor. It's a very cool piece of kit, and just like with the V-Rally one, it's nice that companies are starting to take notice of this community, because it's not just about me as a creator. You could be the best creator in the world, but if you have nobody watching, then there's no point in sponsoring you. Whereas on these occasions, it says a lot about you guys that these companies want to work with us as well, because they know that you are going to watch, and that is so cool. What about next? Well, next is what I was going to say just now, and that was the returning of the unboxing videos. And I always enjoy the unboxing videos. I went on slightly more of a comedy slant with the recent ones, like with the chipmunk voice and actually overdoing it to make it a bit silly with the memeable faces and that kind of stuff. And I think actually my first returning one, unboxing the Aston Martin Rapide, might be my favourite one of all of the unboxings that I've done because of the comedy style. And of course, later on we had a very special unboxing, which we'll get to in just a second. Now, what was next? Well, in October, we had the 1.29 patch, and that brought us back, of course, the Zonda R, the Subaru 22B in full premium glory, the return of Maserati, and a brand new circuit, Catalunya. A very cool update. I would say that overall that's one of the best. The 1.11 update, I can't recall what number it was for Le Mans, what might have been 1.2, I don't know, whatever it was, the Le Mans update, and this one I would say might be my three favourite updates of the year. Then moving on to November, another milestone. I thought and predicted that we'd hit 30,000 by sometime in December. November, we passed 30,000. That's crazy. It was so cool to hit that number so much earlier than expected. Then, more recently again, still on the subject of unboxings, we had the first ever opening of fan mail on the channel. A gift specifically from a member of the Patreon team. I mentioned him earlier, Ryan Maverick, who runs the Discord server, as I said earlier. He of course sent me that car. You can check out that video. Again, that was very cool. For obvious reasons, I don't give out my address all over the place for people to send stuff, but I'm hoping to get a PO box at some point. I don't think it's a really necessary option right now, but at some point I probably will. Then up next in December again, of course, we had the 1.31 patch, the most recent one. And what a patch! The Ferrari F50, the McLaren P1 GTR. Pretty amazing pack. I didn't honestly expect them to bring something like a P1 GTR to the game, and the F50 is a car that many people have wanted for such a long time, and of course the other cars in the pack are great as well. And the last thing on my list is I started my new job. As of the 2nd of December, I moved into my new role in security. The hours are far more. I work about 192 hours a month minimum, plus overtime when available, and of course, that presents challenges as far as scheduling for YouTube, because it means I'm working more than 40 hours a week, plus about an hour and a half to 2 hours for every YouTube video that I produce. So do the math on that. You're looking at about 70 hours or more working a week. So of course that has its challenges, especially when you're working days and nights on long 12-hour shifts. But ultimately, it's actually gone better than I thought it would so far. Today, for instance, I have a night shift, but I still had the time to produce this video, so it's pretty cool. And yeah, I'm looking forward to progressing through this job as well. It's a lot more fun than I was expecting, and I'm enjoying the role. I'm enjoying YouTube, and although YouTube still has its issues, the channel is undoubtedly doing better than it ever has before, and that is, of course, a large part to do with all of you. So once again, thank you for an amazing 2018 on the channel in terms of numbers, in terms of the response to content, in terms of inspiring me to do content of certain types. And who knows what we're going to do in 2019. One of the only things that I know for sure is that I'm going to be phasing out the end cards for videos. I will no longer be having the Gran Turismo music at the end of videos with the playlist showing up. I know that many of you guys love to hear that music at the end, but that's kind of the reason why I'm getting rid of it. I don't really want copyright issues down the line. I've already had companies falsely claiming a number of my videos, And unfortunately, the YouTube system, as anyone who watches PewDiePie recently will have known, it just doesn't work. It's as simple as that. It's a hopeless system. So I'm removing that issue, and once that issue is gone from all of my videos, it just reduces that hassle. Plus, it happens to make every video a little bit shorter as well, but in terms of runtime that most people don't watch anyway. So that's the probably biggest single change that you'll see as of the 1st of January. As far as the rest, as I often say, there are huge, trust me, huge plans that I have for this channel, like you cannot imagine, but most of them I'm simply not in a financial position or in a channel size position to be able to do yet. But trust me, there are things which will blow your mind that I have planned if this channel gets big enough to do them. So I'd like to thank you for your support for 2018. It's been an amazing year, as I said, and here's looking forward to 2019. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.